What is going on, everybody? It is Dan, and we've got another fun and exciting video displaying some upcoming verified and unverified details about the PlayStation 5. So we're going to make this video kind of a two-parter because as of last week, I held a poll for this week's videos, and you guys wanted us to discuss Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 details and upcoming games that I personally am excited for. And we're going to actually break that video up into a two-parter. So be looking forward to part 2 later this week, going into details of my games that I'm really excited for in the remainder of 2020 and beginning of 2021. But without further ado, let's dive right into this. And let's just start with the PlayStation 5, my personal favorite console that I am looking forward to this year. As of last week, October 3rd, we had some leaked images come out on Reddit, and I will link these articles and all the links and details down below in the description so you guys can go check that out if you'd like to on your own and read up on it yourself and do some of your own research. But it's very, very interesting to say the least, and I'm really looking forward to what this console is going to reveal to us once it actually releases. On October the 3rd, so about 3 days ago, this video was leaked, and it is displaying and showing the PlayStation 5 UI startup. Again, this is unofficial. This is not verified by Sony. It could be just a hoax. It could be, just somebody trying to get some clout on the internet. It doesn't mean this is real just because I'm putting it in this video, but it's a very interesting thing because there is over on in that article showing the video for that leaked startup screen. It can be found over on Video Game Chronicles, but on the same website, there's another article that I found discussing the UI of the PlayStation 5. And they've actually spoke with Matt McLaurin. He used to be the head of design at Facebook before joining PlayStation in 2009. And he was actually interviewed and had questions asked to him on LinkedIn about the PlayStation 5 UI, the title screen, all that good stuff in comparison to the PlayStation 4. And his immediate response basically was there's going to be a 100% overhaul to the PlayStation 5. It's kind of interesting because there's a video on there with a breakdown of some stuff, and I'll link it again so you guys can watch it. It's about a 3-minute article, 3-minute video. The first minute and a half, 2 minutes is talking about it. So I would really, really recommend it. And again, I'll link it down below. Basically, this article confirms, though, that the PS5 is going to be a very different feel compared to what we're used to with the PlayStation 4. The UI itself it looks like it's going to be a lot smoother, a lot faster. And then if we get into the actual hardware discussion of the console, the hardware itself, we have leaked images of side panels actually being able to come off. And I don't know if that means we're going to be able to buy customizable panels for this. If Sony is just setting this up where it's capable of being pulled apart for maintenance or adding additional hardware like upgrading hard drives or replacing hard drives or cleaning out the disk tray or cleaning out the side panels that prevent dust and buildup. We know that was a big issue with the PlayStation 4, with like the first generation of PlayStation 4s. Take it from me, a guy that still has a day one PS4, that thing sucks up dust and holds it and contains it, and it's very hard to clean it. You have to be very careful to pull it apart and clean it. So looking at the image, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let me verify that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 clips. 11 clips for this panel. So I don't think it's going to be something made to just easily pop off. It looks like, if you want to take this thing off, you're really going to have to line it up correctly and then really pop that bad boy off to get behind there and clean it out or change it. So pretty interesting. And then our next leaked image, I guess you could call it, would just be like the stand. So based on the research that I'm doing and stuff that's out there, if you go to pushsquare.com, I found this article in regards to the PlayStation 5, and it's titled PlayStation 5 Vertical versus Horizontal. can PlayStation 5 go on its side? Which I found very interesting. So according to this article, it's designed to go both vertical and horizontal. It seems like you have to use the stand, like based on the images on this particular link in this article. Again, I don't know if this is like some kind of marketing image or if this is like an actual image, but it seems like you do need to have the stand underneath it for it to sit flat if you want to put it on its side. So I find that pretty interesting that they would design it that way, because what if your stand breaks? Like, what if you go and take that stand off to put it on for, you know, a vertical stand instead of horizontal, and you break a clip or something? Like, am I still going to be able to just set it on its side to keep it from just sitting flat on a table and being, you know, cattywampus? So it's interesting that they would decide to do that, but it does go into play with like that whole futuristic kind of modern design shape of the console. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be really unique. So as far as the actual design of the console, I don't know how much you guys know about the actual specifications or the specs of the console, so we can actually take a look very quickly at the specs if you guys want. We can do just a quick overhaul because there's a lot of details out there on the internet already breaking down and showing all the specs and just the performance comparisons and stuff like that all over the internet. So I'm just going to give you guys a very, very, very quick rundown. I'm going to put a screenshot of where I'm getting these details from. It's on Eurogamer.net. Again, I'll take a screenshot and post it up here so you guys can see. But we'll just go over these really quick. So the CPU, we've got a Ryzen Zen. It's an 8-core x86 by 64 AMD. So it is an AMD. It's a 16 threads at 3.5 gigahertz. We've got a ray tracing accelerated 2.23 gigahertz, 10.3 teraflops GPU. Pretty solid. The architecture of that GPU is AMD Radeon RDNA 2 base graphics engine. So some of you guys, this may be like a different language to you. All you need to know is it's 2.23 gigahertz with a 10.3 teraflops power, which is pretty solid for a console. Very solid for a console. Memory interference. That's a 16 gigs of GDDR6 RAM. So that's super excellent. Most starter build like gaming PCs only have 16 gigs of RAM. You don't really get into like the PC elitists until you like step up to like 32 gigs of RAM or more. So, you know, this is comparable to like a starting gaming PC. Internal storage is being advertised at 825 gigs solid state drive. So it's a little interesting because in one of these articles at Video Games Chronicle, I believe it actually talks about the hard drive only showing like 625 usable gigs, which is interesting to me that that's showing that. But then over here on the actual like specs that Sony themselves have verified, it's showing 825. So that to me is an interesting comparison there. It does support expandable storage, external storage as well, USB hard drive support, which is great for those of you that like to have an outside sourced hard drive. So good that they're carrying that over to the PlayStation 5. Very, very exciting to see that. As you guys know, there's two versions of the PlayStation 5, one of which will not have an optical drive. The other one will. The one that will is the one that's $500, and the one that will not is $400. So it is a $100 price difference. But if you're somebody like me who does still like to sometimes buy hard disk copies of games, or if you live somewhere where the internet's not that great, this is still a great option for you. You can go to the GameStop or Walmart or Target or wherever you would buy your games at, or order them online and actually get a disc copy of the game and install it into your PlayStation 5. Your video out's going to be HDMI, of course. I mean, I don't know who uses component cables anymore in 2020, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that would wish that there's a component port. I would be very surprised, but not really. It does support 4K at 120 hertz on televisions, which is incredible. And then, of course, it does support Ethernet, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi networking capabilities. So there's a very quick rundown of all the specs. Okay, guys, moving on to our next topic. which is the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, aka the mini fridge and the normal somewhat looking console thing. All right, guys. So Microsoft's been extremely transparent and straightforward, and they've revealed a lot of things about this console. So what I'm actually going to do is just link you guys the YouTube channel where the trailer is and all that stuff, because Microsoft, like I said, they've been very transparent with a lot of their details, as well as like tweets and things like that. Been very transparent with the details of the console. Obviously we haven't seen like UI and stuff, but I think that we're going to get a very good idea, or we can have a very good idea based off kind of the over the evolution of the Xbox One and the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X series consoles. So one thing that I will say is that I will always praise Phil Spencer for basically saving the Xbox brand. If we go all the way back to 2012, 2013, when Don Matrick was the old CEO for the Xbox brand, I really think that this dude, if he would have stayed at the head of things with Xbox, I think Microsoft would have closed the Xbox brand's doors, or come very close to it, because Don Matrick he was a horrible presenter of the product. He could not answer questions involving like, why am I going to benefit from buying an Xbox One over a PS4, things like that. He was very rude about it whenever it came to like people in uniform wanting to buy one where they were stationed, say, overseas, where they had no internet access. His response basically was, "Oh, we have a console. It's called the Xbox 360." He was just, in my opinion, he was a tool. You know, I didn't like the guy. And, you know, and there was a lot of issues with the original Xbox One. You had to have it connected to the internet all the time. You always had to have the Kinect plugged up. You couldn't like share and trade game disc. Which they eventually dropped that before the console launched, but that was going to be the thing. They were going to initiate a DMR to a console, which is never a good idea for a console. We've been doing it for years with Steam and PC games and stuff, but with a console, EA tried to do that with their older multiplayer titles, and it just didn't go over well. So I'm glad that never followed through or went through with the Xbox One brand. Phil Spencer genuinely saved the Xbox brand, in my honest opinion. He's earned a lot of my respect. He's earned my attention to the Xbox brand, especially going into the new Xbox Series X and Series S. And I've got to tell you guys, if you're wanting to get as close to a PC experience without having to spend $1,000 or more, what I'm about to say is probably going to trigger some mega hardcore like PC elitist people out there, because they will swear up and down that they can build a PC as good as this Xbox for $500 or $300 and it be better or just as good. And I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. I just don't believe you can build a gaming PC that has the GPU power and the CPU power that the Series X and Series S does for $300 or $500. I don't buy into it, and I'm just not going to buy into it. So this portion of the video with the Xbox is going to be a little bit more looking at the specs and the comparison of the two and breaking it down for you guys that don't necessarily understand why there's two different versions. So the biggest thing to know, it's kind of like the PlayStation 5. There's a disc version and a discless version. Xbox Series S does not have a disc. The Xbox Series X, aka the mini fridge, does have a disc drive. That's on the outside looking in. That's the best way to compare the two. However, if we lift the hood and look under it, there are some performance differences in the console. So, like I would say the biggest comparison differences are going to be the CPU, the GPU power, and the disk drives. So obviously the RAM and stuff, there's some differences there, but the big thing I think is going to be the GPU and the CPU in those two consoles. So from me looking at it, and I could be wrong on my observation, but that's just my observation of the two. That's the two biggest differences in the Series S and the Series X. So when this was first announced, they revealed the Series X was going to have 3.8 gigahertz CPU, 8-core AMD, 3.8 gigahertz processor in it, right? where the Series S was going to have an 8-core as well CPU, 3.6 gigahertz instead of a 3.8 gigahertz processor in that, like the Series X will. The GPU, though, this is where the big difference comes into play, though. The GPU is going to support 12.15 teraflops of power, whereas the Series S will only support 4 teraflops. So it's significantly, it's 3 times more powerful in the graphics card, or the graphics computing power of the Series X than it is in the Series S. So that $200 price difference that you're looking at, you're paying for a significant increase in teraflops. Basically, for those of you that don't understand what that means, it's computing power, like visual graphical computing power. Now, with that also being said, though, you have to keep in mind these devs are accounting for that when they're making these consoles. They're accounting for those differences. They're purposely optimizing these games to recognize what piece of hardware that they are being launched in and having them adjust so they perform at maximum potential for whichever console you own. So while, yes, there's less teraflop power in the Series S, you're still getting an insane performance target out of that console. And we can look at that in this next portion, where the Series X is going to be supporting 4K at 60 frames a second and going as high as 120 frames a second, which I just don't believe you can get you can build a $500 PC and get that kind of performance output. I just don't believe it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I will own that. But I just don't believe you can get that out of a $500 computer. And then the Series S, the console that's $300, its target performance output is 1440p at 60 frames per second, as high as 120 frames per second. So still amazing performance for a $300 console. I've got to say, like, this is solid. This is very, very solid for a console that's $299. So, you know, if you're kind of debating, like, do I want to spend another $500? Do I want to spend $500 to get an Xbox Series X, or do I want to spend $300 and get a Series S? The only thing, in my opinion, that would really skew you away from the Series S is if you're like one of those mega elitist collectors of consoles where you have to have like the top of the line, like the Pro, like for example, the PS4 Pro versus the PS4. Like, I still have a PS4, or like the Xbox S, like the Xbox One S versus the Xbox One X. I still have an Xbox One S. For me personally, if I'm getting that good solid performance and not a lot of like frame drop and stuff like that, I don't mind saving $200 and getting that Xbox Series S when that comes out. The big thing that's going to be a determining factor for those of you that don't really care about the specs on what's under the hood, and like you don't care about getting like the top of the line and stuff like that, this is the two things to keep in mind. First off, the Xbox Series X does have a disc tray, and it supports the 4K Blu-ray disc, where the Xbox Series S is digital only. So you can only download your games. You cannot put a disc into the Series S. So if you buy a Series S, you cannot go to GameStop and buy the new Call of Duty pre-owned for half the price. You have to download it. So keep that in mind there. Both consoles do support expandable storage. They're going to support a 1 terabyte expansion card. I'm sure we'll learn more about the expansion cards. They are going to support, both of them are going to support backwards compatibility. Obviously, one will be disc and digital. The other one will be digital only. And then the other big thing is the storage. So the Xbox Series X is a 1 terabyte console versus the Series S, which is 512 gigs. And, you know, you may have to buy some additional upgrade stuff if you go with the Series S, as far as the expandable memory. So you might have to buy an external hard drive. You'll be limited to where you cannot put a hard copy of a game into that system. You can only download. So if you live in a more of a rural area where there's not very good internet access, that might be something to consider for yourself as well. I know myself personally, when I get the Xbox, I probably more than likely will get the Series X. And I always wanted a mini fridge. So, you know, You know, I heard it's a dual functioning console and a mini fridge. I mean, it's what it looks like. The PS5 will be my new Wi-Fi router, and the Xbox will be my new mini fridge for my studio. So it's going to be good stuff. But anyways, though, guys, so this is just kind of a quick, I know this is a longer video, but I really hope you guys enjoyed it. And I had a lot of fun making this, doing the research on this, the comparisons, the discussions. It was a big one to edit because it is a longer video. But like I said, be on the lookout later this week for part 2, where we actually take a look at some games that we're excited for in the upcoming remainder of the year and 2021. So everybody have a great day. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and have a wonderful rest of your day.